coming up on At Issue. Dead or alive, we'll tell you what passed and what did not pass this week's deadline to vote bills out of committee.
And it protects people of religious faith in this manner from discrimination by the government.
It's pandering at its rawest sense.
Protecting freedom of conscience. It's a bill designed to safeguard religious beliefs, but does it promote discrimination? We'll have reaction from both sides. At Issue starts right now. Hello and thank you for joining us. I'm Wilson Stribling. Welcome to another edition of At Issue, where we discuss and debate the critical issues facing the state of Mississippi and how these issues impact you. And we want you to share your opinions and comments with us. Just go to facebook.com/MPB Online News. On Twitter, our handle is @MPB News. Also visit our webpage, mpbonline.org/issue. And you can check us out, MPB News, and all your favorite shows on our new MPB app. It's free to download for your Apple or Android phone. There is late-breaking news from the Capitol. A deal has been reached between Democrats and Republicans, ending a standoff that halted all business on the House floor. It started midweek when Republicans in the House voted to suspend points of personal privilege. This meant members could not speak out when upset about House business. It was prompted by the Legislative Black Caucus protesting Republicans pushing through changes to boundaries for the Public Service Commission, the Transportation Commission, and the Supreme Court. So let's talk about all this with our political analysts. Brandon Jones is a Democrat. He's an attorney with the Beria Jones Law Firm and a former member of the House. Austin Barber is a Republican national strategist. He's the founding partner of Clearwater Group. Gentlemen, we thank you both for joining us, as always.
Thanks. Thank you.
A lot of action there at the House, and one of these things where, wait, has this happened before? Some of us were asking ourselves. So, Brandon, what happens next? Are we back on track now?
Well, for you and your friends observing business, the answer is no, this hasn't happened before. We haven't moved points of personal privilege or taken away the right to debate 200-plus bills before they ever reached the floor. So it was an unprecedented moment. And what was at the heart of this issue was this whole issue and business of debating, which many of the representatives, this is their one time to speak out on an issue or to try to affect policy change. So it was a big deal when those changes were made where the previous question was moved on 200 votes, and then, as you mentioned, points of personal privilege were taken away. It sounds like they've reached an agreement, and I would say that that's a testament to the fact that the rules work. The rules are put there to defend the minority against the tyranny of the majority. It looks like it worked this time, but it was hazy there for a minute.
I would say that the reason this started was because there was, let's just say that the Democrats themselves were disappointed with the way a specific bill went down. And we didn't really talk about that leading up to this, but we had an issue with that was coming basis off of the last census that we had. And the census needed to change the number of people that we had in the Central Supreme Court District versus the Southern Supreme Court District. We had to balance those out. That's what the Constitution says we have to do. So what happened was we had a group within the House who was unhappy that Simpson County was moved from the Southern District Supreme Court up to the Central District Supreme Court. Simpson County, as we all know it, is much closer, much more a part of the Central District than is the Southern District. You could move one whole county, whole cloth from the South to the Central, and it worked. But the Legislative Black Caucus got very upset. And they essentially stopped government. It was not working. They shut it down. They took all the parliamentary procedures that they possibly could utilize, from making every bill that comes up on the House floor, and Brandon's much more an expert at this than I am because he was there, but they used all the procedures they could. They wanted all bills to be read. They wanted to take these personal points of privilege where there's no time limit. You can go up there and you can talk about why you've been offended or apologizing to someone else on the House floor that you possibly could, because they were upset. They did not like the fact that Simpson County was moved from the Southern Supreme Court District to the Central Supreme Court District. And that's sort of the genesis, in my opinion, of this.
Austin's explanation of the issue was more substantive than what we got, and that was the problem. This really wasn't about the substance of the issue. The truth is Republicans won, and they have the votes on these issues. That's a given. And so all that was asked for was an opportunity to have a conversation about it. And it's disingenuous for Republicans to act like They use points of personal privilege. I would venture to say Greg Snowden has used points of personal privilege more than any member of the House when I was there. Every time that they did not like what was going on, and I happened to be a part of that Democratic majority, Philip Gunn brought up a point of personal privilege. Greg Snowden went to the well, brought up a point of personal privilege. Mark Baker asked for bills to be read. These are all things that are used in the minority. What we didn't do was change the rules. What they did this week was change the rules in the middle of a session. We never did that.
And I think the difference here than what Brandon is saying is you had a group that said, we're shutting it down. Nothing else is getting done. And you got to know there's a deadline coming next week. And that group within the House said, no more, no, we're not doing the people's work.
The Speaker manages the deadlines. He could have started moving bills up earlier. He chose not to.
But what he had to deal with, and I applaud the Speaker for working this out. I mean, what we did, I don't want to bury the lead here, because Brandon went straight to this. The Speaker worked with the Democrats in the House, and they came up with an agreement, and he deserves credit for that. It was obviously a sticky issue that they had to work through, but listen, there was a certain group in the House who were very unhappy that they didn't get their way with one county versus the other being moved up. And so they said, you know what, we're going to use every legislative procedure move that we possibly can. But you know what's important before you interrupt me? The people don't care about this. They voted you to go up there to take care of business, to get things done. Okay, and I'm thankful that this just ended today, and then it did not lead into next week. I'm very happy about that.
I know we got to move on, but I just want to say one thing. They were acting within the rules, and they were taking care of business. And there's also important to say this. There's a contingency out there, Wilson, that wants to make this a black issue. They want to say the Legislative Black Caucus every chance they get. As a white Democrat, I'm here to tell you, what happened in the House this week offends white Democrats too. It's not a black issue, it's not a white issue. They played with the rules and they shouldn't.
No, I don't think this is a racial, and I can't let you do that without responding. This is not a racial issue. This is whatever group is in the House who says, you know what, we're shutting it down. You're not moving this anymore. Every bill that's going to be read, we don't care if it takes 6 hours. We're all going to, everybody who's a part of our group is going to get up here and stop this. That's not right. It is within the rules, and you can do that. But when you shut things down, look, this is what happens. And thankfully, the Speaker worked very hard, get David Berry applaud him as well. I assume he was in there working with members of the Legislative Black Caucus with the Speaker to get this worked out, because that's what's most important.
But reading bills isn't shutting it down. That's the only time that some of those members have ever had a bill read. So it was an important moment for some of them.
This is already more debate than was able to take place on the House floor
exactly.
today. Don't go anywhere, gentlemen. We'll come back to you with our segment here in a moment, but thank you for that. Well, we're going to move on now because it was a busy week at the Capitol, as the deadline did come down for bills to make it out of committee. And here are some of the bills we've been keeping track of that are still alive. The bill calling for an overhaul of the board at the Jackson Medgar Wiley Evers International Airport made it out of committee and will now head to the Senate floor. Authored by Senator Josh Harkins, the bill would abolish the current board and replace it with a regional board with members selected by the governor from Hinds, Madison, and Rankin counties. They would oversee operations and future growth. Currently, the mayor of Jackson and the city council control board appointments. Opponents of the plan say money, power, and race are at the root of what they see as a state takeover of the city of Jackson's greatest asset. Also alive, a bill that would place higher standards on reading for third graders to move to fourth grade. State Superintendent Kerry Wright says some students who move to fourth grade are still lacking reading skills, and test scores are required only for a basic level. The new reading standards would be in place by spring of 2019 if they are approved. A bill that would allow a doctor to provide a written excuse to exempt a child from being vaccinated moved out of committee. State health officials opposed changing the requirement that the state health department must approve exemption requests. The bill's supporters say parents and not the state should be the ultimate authority on vaccinating their children. A bill that rewrites state election laws is also heading forward. Secretary of State Delbert Hosemann proposed the plan. It calls for making it easier for voters to cast their ballots and pushing for tougher penalties for those who commit election crimes. Other bills still alive, the Mississippi Church Protection Act. It would allow armed security teams at places of worship. Killing an intruder would be considered justifiable homicide. Making domestic violence a reason for divorce. The bill's author, Senator Sally Doty, says it's a way to help victims, and it clarifies the current divorce law. School consolidation, a plan to put several school districts together. Holmes County and Durant, LaFleur County and Greenwood, Chickasaw County, Houston, and Okolona. Carroll County, Montgomery County, and Winona, and Lumberton and Lamar County. And a bill letting students change school districts passed committee. It would allow students in underrated school districts to move to higher performing districts. A bill to create school vouchers did not make it out of committee, nor did a bill that would have protected teachers who want to discuss creationism along with other scientific theories on the origin of life. Here's a look at other bills that are dead. A bill that would have strengthened penalties for animal cruelty did not make it this year. Animal rights activists were asking lawmakers to get tough on people who abuse pets by creating a first offense felony of aggravated abuse of a dog or cat and conform reports that is to FBI guidelines. We've been keeping an eye on the controversy over the state flag this session. Those who want to change the flag and those who want to keep it held rallies at the Capitol, but no bills tackling the issue made it out of committee in either the House or the Senate, despite House Speaker Philip Gunn being in favor of changing the flag. Gunn says he has not changed his position on changing the flag. He released this statement. He said, quote, "I will continue to stand by my view that changing the flag is the right thing to do. The flag is going to change. We can deal with it now or leave it for future generations to address. I believe our state needs to address it now. I am disappointed that nothing took shape this year, but I will continue this effort." End quote. Well, some say it protects religious beliefs. Others say it's state-supported discrimination. Lawmakers in the House passed a bill that would protect people who refuse services based on their faith. Some believe the bill puts the LGBT community in the crosshairs. Here's MPB's Desiree Frazier.
When we lose our right to believe what we believe, we're not free anymore. And that's all this bill does. It protects people of faith from discrimination.
House Bill 1523 is called the Protecting Freedom of Conscience from Government Discrimination Act. The bill's author, Representative Andy Gibson, who's a Baptist minister, says there's tension between groups of people over the definition of marriage. He says the goal of the bill is to protect people who act on their religious beliefs that marriage should only be between a man and a woman.
Since the Supreme Court decision of last year, we've had a number of circuit clerks and other people who've been asked to issue licenses that to perform these marriages, and they have a moral objection to it in good faith. This just simply provides that a person having that type of belief can recuse himself and someone else can perform the ceremony, issue the license, whatever the case may be. And it protects people of religious faith in this manner from discrimination by the government.
The U.S. Supreme Court ruled same-sex marriage legal last year. Under this legislation, Gibson says a clerk or judge can recuse themselves from issuing a marriage license or performing a marriage ceremony for a gay or lesbian couple, like the clerk in Kentucky, Kim Davis, who made headlines last year for refusing to issue a marriage license to a gay couple. Gibson says the official must register their faith-based objection with the state, so the same service would be provided by someone else, identified inside the office without delay. Representative Tracy Arnold is also a church pastor. He says the bill does not discriminate. Rather, it resolves conflict without compromising one's beliefs.
Well, there's pressure in our society to compromise, but even with the pressure, we still have to hold true to our beliefs, according to the Word of God. That's where our foundation is in my particular arena of belief as a Christian. But this goes far and beyond that, I believe. I believe it protects other people's right to believe what they choose to believe as well. So it's a safe measure for other folks as well that believe differently than even I believe.
If folks hold those beliefs, that's fine. I'm okay with that. But if they also have a job to do in our government, then they ought to do their job or they ought to resign from their job. But the more onerous part of that bill, in my mind, is if the state then told that person, you must issue that marriage license because federal law applies in the state of Mississippi, then they can sue the state of Mississippi and recover attorney's fees and other damages for having to comply with legitimate federal law. That just doesn't make any sense to me.
Lawmakers we spoke to who voted against it say the bill will cause more problems for the state in the future.
It's hard enough on a national scene to be viewed as having some archaic ideas. The Supreme Court has spoken in Obergefell, and the law of the land is now clear. While you may disagree with it, it to me harkens us back to the days of discrimination racial discrimination, which is where, as long as it was based on a biblical belief, then it was okay to discriminate. So now we just substitute the term LGBT in there instead of race, and it doesn't make it any better. What it does in a difficult budget year is it gets a law out that makes the national scene, that embarrasses us, and it ensures that we're going to have to spend state dollars now defending a law that is patently unfair and illegal on its face in light of the Supreme Court rulings.
Institutionalized homophobia is just as devastating as institutionalized racism. It is an attempt to use political power to legislate a personal, private prejudice. It is an attempt to say that our lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender family members are not Mississippi enough.
The American Civil Liberties Union of Mississippi says they oppose the bill and will fight against it so the law doesn't go into effect.
The history of America and the history of the world is that religion has been used by certain people to discriminate. And we've been trying to remind people that historically they have been wrong. And so we're going to continue to push that. And here in Mississippi, again, we don't want to infringe on anybody's religious beliefs, but at the same time, we don't want people using religion to discriminate against other citizens in the state.
The bill could also protect businesses that deny services for same-sex weddings. But Gibson says the root of the bill is to safeguard religious principles.
We're living in a world where everyone has been demanding rights and been granted rights by the courts. And it seems like sometimes the only people who don't have rights are believers or Christians. And this bill is designed to recognize the fact that we're Americans too. We have rights too.
The House passed the bill by an 80-39 vote. It now goes to the Senate for consideration. Desiree Frazier, MPB News.
Here's what some of you are saying about this bill on our Facebook page. Cody Cornwell says, the Bible states that marriage is a bond between one man and one woman. I don't think I should be forced to perform a marriage because our progressive society has decided to change their beliefs. Ethan Grisham says, as Mr. Jones said when this was discussed on the show previously, this bill is a solution looking for a problem. A business transaction is strictly that, business. It's not a moral affirmation or denial. In regards to state employees, if your beliefs prevent you from abiding by the law, then maybe it's time for a career change. Becky Metz-McGandy says, if my religious beliefs prevent me from doing my job, I will be asked to find another job. So, how does all this matter to you? Let's get straight to the point with views from both sides of the aisle. We'll bring Brandon and Austin back into the conversation now. Brandon, let me start with you. Representative Jay Hughes called that bill pandering, is it?
I'm afraid it is, and we've seen a bit much of this session. That's unfortunate. But I do think that when we have such big issues facing us, issues like a budget, issues like a flailing economy, it seems like a bit of a diversion. And I will say this, I'm a person that goes to church, I'm a person of faith. I don't recall discrimination being one of those major articles that we were to look out for. But for we get a chance to discriminate, somehow our faith is diminished. That's a little bit far for me.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think the author of the bill is trying to discriminate against anybody. I agree with Brandon. I mean, and you may not hear that very often, but I mean, I think there are bigger issues. I think we need to worry about the budget. I think Medicaid, health care just in general, education. I mean, under the leadership of Tate Reeves and the Speaker, we've done some fantastic things on education. I think we need to get back to focusing on those. But look, I'm sort of a free market guy. You know, I think if I want to go somewhere and they're not going to serve me something, well, I'm going to go to their competitor next door, and they're probably not going to survive. So I'm kind of a free market guy.
You both mentioned the budget. There was a budget forecast that indicates the economy in Mississippi is a bit sluggish. We've already seen some cuts. Is this something that you think will rebound from, Austin?
Well, I hope so. You know, I mean, listen, we're not as dependent and reliant as Louisiana and Texas on the oil and gas economy, but we certainly are, particularly in South Mississippi. So we'll have to see what the price of oil does. Hopefully it goes back up. And we'll just have to see. I mean, we have to stay positive about that, but I think, you know, the governor made his mandatory cuts. I know that the appropriations chairman and the speaker and the lieutenant governor are being very cautious in the budget process, the appropriations process. That will certainly not get settled until the end of the session. So I know they're probably watching those numbers very closely as they go through that process, and we just have to be optimistic as we move forward on that.
Yeah, it just strikes me at minimum as a weird time to be pushing for more tax cuts, but I suppose that's where we are.
Yeah, no, it sort of it is where we are. I mean, that's what people elected the Republicans to do, and we'll have to see. But I know that they'll be cautious, and they will put triggers in each tax cut bill to make sure that we're meeting certain requirements before tax
I think
cuts
you
go
would be
forward.
cautious because you're reasonable. I don't know if
these
that kind
guys
of
are
mentality
reasonable.
prevails over there.
No, it does. It does.
All right, the authority, the airport authority, it's the governing board of the Jackson Medgar Wiley Evers International Airport, the largest airport in the state. This bill essentially would take control from the city of Jackson and give it more to the governor, and that bill is alive. Is that a good idea?
Yeah, it's a little bit inaccurate with your description there. I've had a conversation with Senator Josh Harkins today about this bill. He's the author of the bill. Of course, he lives in Flowood in Rankin County, and I've talked to people on both sides. I live here in Jackson. It won't take total control away from the city of Jackson, but even more important than that, the city of Jackson will not lose any tax revenues on
Then
this.
what's the point then?
Well, I don't know. You got to ask the people of the city of Jackson of that.
The point of the bill, though.
Oh,
Senator
okay.
Harkins'
I'm
bill.
sorry. I apologize about that. Yeah, the point of the bill is that more control over this airport, instead of it being more of a metro board, it needs to be a regional board. When this airport was built, late 50s, early 60s, Rankin County had 30,000 people. Rankin County has 150,000 people. Same thing with Madison. The point of this bill is the city of Jackson benefits 100% from all revenues, does not put a whole lot of money, does not provide hardly any services out there. So Rankin County deserves some responsibility. Madison County deserves some responsibility. And I also think the author of the bill, and probably I think a majority in the Senate, want to see higher qualified people that are on this board. Let's turn our airport out there, which is critical to our state, into a better airport. Let's get more experienced people on there who can bring more airlines out there, more development out there. And you know what that's going to do? That's going to help the city of Jackson, because those tax dollars will flow back into the city of Jackson. So it's a win-win for the city of Jackson, in my opinion.
Does that add up to you?
It doesn't. I think that great states are made up of great cities. I trust our city's government when they talk about this issue, and I'm concerned that our state never really has bought into Jackson. And I'll leave that to our state leaders to describe why that is. But if you look at Birmingham, if you look at Atlanta, if you look at Charlotte, if you look at Nashville, these are places that were supported by their state government. We, in a very small-minded Mississippi way, have decided that we're going to do something different. We're going to, leave our airport board to that little county pocket that happens to be where a good number of our state leaders come from, at the expense of the city of Jackson, which is our capital city, and I think it's a mistake.
My friend misses this over here. And listen, I believe in Jackson. I live in Jackson. I pay taxes in Jackson. My office is in downtown Jackson. Everybody else left downtown Jackson. My business partner and I decided to stay in downtown Jackson. This will help the city of Jackson. Let me tell you, man, the city of Jackson, they need as much help as they can get. Right up and down the streets as we came to this studio, there are potholes everywhere, infrastructure problems are everywhere, and it's not totally 100% the mayor and this city council's problems. These are things that they have inherited. Some of them, have been on the board for a while, but they need as much help as they possibly can get with new revenues coming in. And if you take a look at some of the individuals that are on that airport authority board, they're not qualified to be on there. I've always tried to just tell the truth, and that's the truth. And the requirements need to go up, and we need more representatives from the suburbs. The suburbs have grown. And Rankin County is not the same place that it was 50 or 60 years ago. And I'm passionate about this.
Are you telling us that Harkins has binders full of engineers and aviators?
He would probably have more binders full than the city of Jackson does.
Okay, let's talk about the state flag. This is Philip Gunn, the speaker, surprised, disappointed some people, delighted some people, surprised a lot of people when he called for a change to the state flag early on, before the session began. The session begins, we have lots of bills dealing with the flag. Not one of them made it out of committee, and now the speaker says he's disappointed that happened. Are you surprised none of these bills made it out of committee, Brandon?
I guess I'm not too surprised. But Wilson, courage counts. We have not seen any major initiative that Speaker Gunn wanted to pass through the House that has not passed through the House. So this notion that somehow he was begging and groveling his caucus to get a bill through and it didn't work, That's nonsense. Nobody believes that. If he wanted the bill to go through, it would have gone through. This is a problem of how you perceive government. This is a tough issue. These guys have built political capital. I'll be the first one to tell Austin on and off camera, they kicked us around last November. They've got the seat of government. This is the time to lead. And this is a hard decision. I don't want to act like it's an easy political one, but these guys in these offices should lead on this issue. It might not be the most popular thing in the moment, but we want a calling card that represents our whole state. Speaker Gunn did a great thing by giving voice to that over the summer. He's completely dropped the ball by letting a deadline pass and not taking the reins.
Well, I think Brandon's being too hard on him. I mean, the speaker got out there with what his opinion was and is on this issue. I shouldn't say in the past tense, because he said it still is his opinion that the state flag should change. And you and I don't know about the conversations. At least I don't know about the conversations and the arm twisting that he tried to do on this bill. Look, I mean, my personal opinion is that we should change the state flag. And I think that if this happens, I hope it is ripped off like a Band-Aid. I don't want to see, this is my personal opinion, I'm not speaking for anybody in the legislature or any elected officials. I hope that we don't see a process where it's a referendum, because I think it'll be a prolonged, ugly fight. I hope that if the flag is changed, I hope it's changed very quickly, sort of like it was done in South Carolina and some other states. But I think you're being probably a little too hard on the speaker there. We just don't know the conversations that he was having, and that is a very difficult, any issue is difficult and perplexed, just like with what we're dealing with the presidential elections that are so complex and perplexing to try to understand. An issue like this in a body of 122 members is sort of no different in many ways.
Well, I've been accused of worse than being too harsh on Gunn, but I got to commend you for what you said. I think it takes more courage for somebody like you to say that than it does for a Democrat talking head to say it.
We'll let that be the last word. Thank y'all both, and thank you for joining us on At Issue. We are out of time. We ask you to join us again next Friday night here on MPB for another edition of At Issue.